All right, we've got another guest on the way here, and it is an author. And this is our John Gilstrap segment, where because of John's notoriety in the field, he has met many people along the way and been introduced to many people along the way who also write for a living quite successfully. John, step in and introduce our next guest.
One of the great treasure troves of Washington that's never allowed to be reported, actually. It's officially not allowed to be reported. It's called the Washington Authors Dinner. Happens twice a year at an undisclosed location in Washington. And I had the pleasure of meeting Edward Segal there at this last meeting, who's a fascinating guy. He's a crisis management expert. He's a leadership strategies senior contributor for Fords.com, where he covers crisis-related news, topics, and issues. And of course, crisis management is kind of my bag. He's the author of the award-winning and best-selling book, Crisis Ahead, 101 Ways to Prepare for and Bounce Back from Disasters, Scandals, and Other Emergencies. Rob, take notes. Which is also published in Chinese language edition. Edward hosts the Crisis Management Minute podcast on Apple Podcasts, Federal News Network, and wherever else podcasts are found. Edward, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
So, crisis management in Washington, D.C. Do you have any work going around, anything to do?
It's never a challenge to find something to write about or talk about. Sometimes it's a matter of prioritizing which crisis of the day I'm going to write about or talk about.
Do the crises find you, or do you go hunting the crises?
A little bit of both. As a crisis management consultant, I'm often approached by companies that have dug themselves into a hole with a crisis and ask for my help. Otherwise, I pay very close attention to the latest headlines and write stories and articles for Forbes.com and other publications.
So give us a kind of a peek into all right, here's my experience with crisis management. That I was a safety engineer for 35 years. It's the thing you think you're having a good day until you realize you really haven't. And when I was doing this, we didn't have Twitter and we didn't have social media where my bad day has already accelerated beyond comprehension before I realize I've had a bad day. So in these days with social media and what kinds of plans, if you're a police department or if you're a manufacturer, if you're an employer of any kind, you can lose control of your message in a heartbeat and not be able to get it back, right?
That's right. You have to pay very close attention to what's happening on social media. I advise companies to establish, if they don't have one already, a social media monitoring network so that they're the first and not the last to know if someone's being criticized, if someone's offering criticism about their products or services and activities, and they can be proactive to respond to make sure it doesn't turn into something worse.
And what do they do when they have lost control? I know that I'm looking at the cover of your book here, you talk about Amazon, Apple, Boeing, Taylor Swift, Weight Watchers, General Mills, Jeep. In some of those, give us an example of what happened and how you helped and what the issue was and how we got the genie back in the bottle.
Well, the cases I write about on the book cover, anyway, I did not help, but I found them and wrote about them for Forbes.com. The best practice for any client, whether they're mine or somebody else's, is to make sure that you have a crisis management plan in place and that you're able to activate it immediately when you become aware of the crisis. If you don't have a plan in place or if you haven't updated it in quite a while, then when a crisis hits, you won't know what to do, when to do it, who's going to do it, where to do it, or how to do it. So whether it's my client or somebody else, make sure you have a plan in place. And as soon as you know you have a crisis, trigger it and get going to help recover and address the situation.
So if there's I'm in the entertainment business. I write fiction. It's kind of a different corner of the entertainment business than you're in. But if I don't know, that video from the frat party from way back when pops up and starts to run out of control, what do you do? What's the response?
Well, depending upon how bad the video is, I would immediately apologize. I would be proactive and try to establish and control the narrative. If you wait for the media to contact you, you've automatically lost the narrative. You have to be proactive, get your side of the story out, and put your best possible spin as to why you did that video, what it showed, and promise never to do it again.
Does it ever work to say, come on, I was a kid, I was drunk, I was in college, give me a break?
No. The phrase youthful, I mean, there was a senator years ago, I think he was in the 80s, and he had an affair with a much younger person. He was in his 80s, and he blamed his indiscretion on youthful indiscretion. He was in his 80s. No, sir, that does not work. You've got to own it. You got to apologize, and you cannot make any excuses.
I thought one of the best jobs of damage control in my lifetime was Hugh Grant, after he had gotten busted for his encounter with the lady of the night in the car there. He went on Jay Leno's show, and Jay Leno's first question was, "What the hell were you thinking?" And everybody laughed, and it just seemed like this thing that could have wrecked his showbiz career suddenly became humorous as opposed to disastrous.
Well, you have to be very careful how you use humor. If you come across as directed at yourself, self-deprecating, that's fine. But you want people to laugh with you, not at you. So I think Hugh Grant handled that situation very well. But it's something you have to be very careful with. Otherwise, your attempt to be humorous about it or make a joke, it can backfire and can actually make a crisis even worse.
Yeah, and then that's a great point, because Leno handled the humor part and Hugh Grant did the self-deprecating part and accepted responsibility, and it kind of all worked, and he still had a career. Bill Stubblefield.
Yeah, Edward, thanks for joining us today. When John Gilstrap introduced the segment, he mentioned crisis management was in his wheelhouse. He dealt with it all the time. Reading a lot of John's books, I thought the way you deal with them, you kill everybody.
Well, that helps. That's one way to do it.
Will that work, Edward? Just killing everybody?
That's right. Dead man can't tell tales. So that's certainly one strategy. I don't recommend it, but that's for some people, that's your strategy, tactic, and technique to deal with the crisis.
Well. Problem with Gilstrap is he moved here, and in his last book, he was killing everybody in West Virginia.
He was. Yeah.
It's a small state. We can't afford to lose people.
That makes it hard to do a sequel. That makes it hard to do a sequel, though.
Yeah. Edward, do you find a commonality among the various crises that you encounter? Is there a basic root commonality?
Yeah, denial, usually. The Crisis Management Hall of Shame is filled with examples of companies, organizations, and even high-profile individuals who are absolutely, totally convinced that they would never have a crisis until they did, and they're usually unprepared. Most companies and organizations don't have a crisis management plan in place. If they do, they haven't updated it, and even if they have, they haven't practiced it to make sure it's going to work. So the more you delay, you deny that you'll ever have a crisis, and you don't take steps to prepare for it, when a crisis strikes, you're going to really be in a very deep hole, and you're actually putting yourself behind the eight ball. So my advice is always prepare, practice, and get ready for the next crisis.
This could apply to both individuals and corporations. Do you find it more prevalent with one or the other?
No, denial is pretty much of an equal opportunity situation. People just don't think it's going to happen to them until it does. Companies don't think it'll happen to them until it does. And that's why I prepared a crisis management plan template that I'm glad to make available for free to your audience. It's on my website at crisiscasebook.com, and they can download it for free. And the plan is scalable, no matter how large or small your company or organization is. You can customize it for your situation, and when a crisis strikes, you can activate it immediately.
And could you repeat that website one more time, Edward?
Yes, it's crisiscasebook.com. That's crisiscasebook.com. Just go to the top of the navigation bar. It says free crisis management plan template. Click on that, fill in the form, and you'll immediately get your complimentary crisis management plan template.
There are different crisis in terms of seriousness of a crisis. Some of them are based on people actually dying. I think of the Bhopal disaster when I was in my teens when that happened. Some of them are individual reputation damage. So obviously there's got to be a different playbook for whatever the type of crisis is and how serious it is in regards to whether people died or whether someone's reputation got harmed.
You're absolutely right. That's why I recommend companies and organizations don't have one plan, but they have several. Plan A, B, and C, or X, Y, and Z, because every crisis will be different in terms of the challenges and how it should be addressed. But you need a basic plan in place so you can customize it as necessary for different crisis situations.
Well, let me test drive this with you. I used to work at an explosives manufacturing plant, which was when crises tended to be loud and pretty dramatic.
But the result was everybody's dead, John. There's no
Not
crisis.
everybody, but
It's right up his alley. Yeah.
but our crisis management plan, this was quite some time ago. Our crisis management plan was nobody said anything until we knew something. And then the voice always came from a single person. There was a single spokesman for the company that only spoke what they knew, and it would have to be truthful, and there was no guessing. How does test driving that? How does that sound?
Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news for that situation is that there is one corporate spokesperson.
And no social media.
Pardon?
And no social media.
And no social media. The bad news is that social media or not, the longer you are quiet about a crisis, even though you might know nothing or little about it, you're giving others an opportunity to fill the vacuum and control the negative. I advise my clients to at least have a temporary statement, or what I call a holding statement, that just as simple and basic as we're aware of the situation, we're looking into it, and we'll update people as we know more. At least you're getting the word out that you're aware, that you're trying to control the narrative. And as soon as you know more information, social media or not, share what you know, when you know it, how you know it, and the source of that information.
Edward, you keep coming back to the fact that you need a plan in place you can fall back on. How far would you take that? Do you need for a company, regardless of the small or large, do you need a crisis management team that can be activated very quickly?
Yes, you need a team in place, frankly, before you even have a crisis. You need that team in order to practice to make sure they can work together, know the details of the plan and how to implement it, and test on a regular basis the team and the plan. Having a plan and having a team and not testing them is like having no plan and no team at all. You have to make sure they work and work well together when a crisis strikes.
Is it reasonable? There have been a couple of cases in the news recently where employees of a company on their private social media account say something that is politically nasty, takes a very strong position on one side of the political spectrum or the other, that if said on the corporate account would be obviously actionable and a problem. But the disciplinary action is taken because of their private Facebook account or private social media. Is that reasonable? Is that something that you tell your clients that they should be monitoring the private social media of their employees?
It depends. It's a very careful situation you have to pay attention to of weighing the needs and concerns and reputation of the company versus the First Amendment rights of the employees. I advise my clients to have in their employee manual, and if they sign a contract, in the contractual provisions about the use of social media, and if they say something on one of the platforms that's harmful to the company, yes, that could be the basis of termination or penalties. But this is a great example of where you need to consult with legal counsel and to make sure you're not, by firing or penalizing an employee for what they said on social media, you're not creating a different kind of crisis for yourself.
Is it fair to say, Edward, that with crisis, it's a question of when and not if?
Oh, yes. We seem to be having more different crises year over year, and I have a very broad definition of what a crisis is. In my mind, it's anything that can harm the image, reputation, future bottom line of a company or its top officials. For individuals, it's the same thing. A crisis could hurt their career, it could hurt their promotion, it could damage their standing in the community. So you have to be very careful what you say, how you say it. You might think it's something really simple and really innocent, but it might offend people, trigger a crisis, and put you in a very bad situation. And you're going to need a crisis management plan to help you get out of it.
What do you recommend, especially in the social media where everything goes at lightning speed or the speed of light? What do you recommend for those accusations that are just false, where people or corporations or entities are put in the position of having to prove the negative, where they have to say, no, I did not do this horrific thing?
It's better to get your side out of it than to stay quiet, because if you stay quiet, then people assume that the allegations, outlandish as they may be, are true. And when you get around or decide to fight back, it can be a challenge. You'll already be on the defensive, and being on the defensive is never a good place to be in a crisis. So even if it's untrue or outlandish, don't wait. Get your side of the story out there and keep on getting it out there. Respond to every allegation. Use every social media and communication method and channel you have at your disposal, and control the narrative as best you can. But don't sit on the sidelines and assume, well, it's outlandish, no one will believe it. People will believe it, and then you're going to be in another crisis management situation.
Is this a change with social media, Edward? Because going back several years or so ago, the principal operating approach would be it'll die down unless there's justification. So most of the time we were advised, and I was in the political world for a while, sit back, it'll blow over. But with social media, you're saying that's not the case?
That was then, and this is now. Information, disinformation, misinformation travels at the speed of light, and you simply cannot be passive. You can't sit on the sidelines. You can't hope it's going to go away or cross your fingers and pray that it'll disappear, because in this day and age, people are more than happy to weigh in, whether it's taking photos of someone doing something wrong in public or retweeting something somebody said in an email message, or just frankly, unfortunately, making things up. So disinformation and misinformation are incredibly important crisis triggers, and this is a big change from when we had what they called the old mainstream media of print and just broadcast. With social media, you can't afford not to pay attention to what's happening, and you can't afford to be quiet. You have to respond immediately and forcefully.
And for our listeners and viewers, thecrisiscasebook.com is Edward's website. And if you go there, crisiscasebook.com, there's his contact information about workshops, information about his books, and the crisis plan template as well. So just so you know. When people contact you, Edward, are they typically borderline in tears and kind of in a panic, and you have to talk them off the ledge?
And we've got about 45 seconds for your answer, Edward.
Yes, more often than not, they have dug themselves into a hole, or they find themselves in a hole, and they're asking my help to get them out of the hole as quickly as possible. It's rare, but people actually let me know that they might have a problem, and how can we be proactive? It's always better to be proactive than to work out of a hole and to be behind the eight ball. So practice, prepare, and get ready for a crisis. Don't wait for it to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when companies and organizations will have a crisis.
Edward Segal, thank you so much for your time this morning. Greatly appreciated. Very interesting stuff.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Edward.
Take care.